A feature that does automatic launch control with perfect acceleration? Should it be banned from The Sims? I think there might be a case for it. Conspit is a relatively new sim racing equipment manufacturer offering plenty of things, from relatively affordable hydraulic pedal sets all the way into surround gaming with surround screens. They were at Sim Racing Expo, but unfortunately I didn't have much time to try their equipment out, but it certainly looked very good. Their stuff looks well assembled, well designed, and looks pleasing to look at, and their hydraulic pedals are like 700 pounds or 700 euros with delivery, of course excluding whatever it's going to be for import duties. Now, affordable, good-looking Chinese equipment isn't really something new. We've seen this for a while with stuff like Mozza, for example, but in terms of Conspit, what made me raise my eyebrow, and many other people as well, is something like this. Unlock unparalleled speed and stability with Conspit's automatic launch control. Say goodbye to manual starts. Our cutting-edge tech ensures faster takeoffs and unmatched consistency. Experience the future of racing where technology takes the lead. Wow, that's quite a lot to take in. DivCam did the video specifically talking about the launch control system of the Conspit pedals, but first of all, don't go over to DivCam's to throw him out, insult him, or whatever. It was showing that this exists, and to my what I was able to look at, he wasn't particularly happy with it or didn't feel very comfortable with it. It was basically showing, hey, these pedals have this as well. Don't go on to Conspit to dunk on them. Their equipment might be very well good without this feature. I haven't tried their hardware, so I'm not sure. This is really not about that. This is about the software or the type of software they have developed, and I believe others as well, and the implications it has in sim racing. The evolution of equipment isn't something new at all. Mechanically, what we use has evolved throughout the years. A cheap load cell nowadays would be considered basically bleeding edge at the beginning of the millennium. The same would be for lower end or entry-level direct drives like the Camus, the CSLDD, or the Motar R5 or something like that. If you compare what we have now to whatever was available at the beginning of the century or at the beginning of the last decade, we have evolved a lot in terms of hardware. The software also has taken huge strides in the same way. Now we have the ability to change on the fly the way the force feedback is perceived to us, showing more or less detail, more or less graininess. Having a good pedal set or a basic force feedback system is a competitive advantage against someone with much lower end equipment. I've made this point many times and I will do these points again if needed. In the software, there may also be options on how to modulate the brake, the pedal curves, and so on. This also brings some competitive advantage. The software also brings competitive advantages, and we can't forget about iRacing specifically as well. A few years ago, it was basically all the rage to do a log change or ini file change for the brakes where we couldn't go past certain percentage, otherwise we would risk the ABS be locked in the iRacing GT3 cars, for example. In my opinion, this consists of a competitive advantage, a competitive edge as well, one that, for example, iRacing could police, but they essentially didn't. But I will also argue for these examples why they may bring some competitive advantages to lower-end pedals or pedals without software, that these advantages can only really be exploited to its maximum if you do some training on it, if you train up your muscle memory, if you do it through repetition. So it's not something of installing it, using it, and you have perfect usage of it. It's never the case. It really will depend on your time that you have to adapt to those advantages. If you need to change elastomers or change the software to better have a better braking line or throttle line or whatever, you need to take the time to know how to use your equipment properly, and it's something very, very mechanical. Mostly becomes an unlockable skill, and it's something that it will depend from driver to driver. Having the same software even set up at the same level, it doesn't mean that they're gonna have the same output. It really depends on the driver. Wheels like this with clutch paddles also exist. They're quite cheap. For example, this one is $199. You can find probably cheaper ones than that nowadays, and they will help you out to do a better standing start for the cars that actually need it and actually support stuff like this. But much like the pedals, it really depends on the way you configure it and the way that you actually go out of the clutch as well. So it's still very mechanical, very manual, and it's still independent on the way that you actually train with these wheels and train the standing starts. And also, these are actually emulating real life. You know, the McLaren GT3, plenty of them will use this. Lots of GT3 cars will have this, the Porsche Cup, and so on. So this is essentially emulating something that happens in real life and happens in the sim. And you know what? It's possibly the most immersive tool to do so. This feature, though, is something completely different, and the tweet admits as much. Say goodbye to manual starts, and the tech ensures faster takeoffs. Of course, there's lots of marketing lingo and stuff going here. They're trying basically to sell you their equipment. It's normal. Everybody says, oh, if you use your stuff, you're going to be faster. But on this case, this is actually the case, and it's always replicable. If it's something like this and it's really dependent on this specific hardware, and it also ensures always perfect launches, could this be considered a cheat? Well, maybe. There is really a strong argument for it, in my opinion. And regardless of what we are going to say about load cells and wheels with clutches and whatever not, the reality is that having those things will not automatically give you an advantage. And for example, if you watch Formula One or watch Porsche Cup and the way they do the standing starts, it's the driver that actually needs to control the clutch, and the performance out of the line will much depend on the driver. This goes to opposition to what Conspit is doing, which basically removes the driver from the standing start bar doing two things: pressing a button and dumping the clutch. As Davecam's video shows, the software for the Conspit pedals does the perfect launch control clutch release, ensuring maximum acceleration without any input from the driver. The result on this test was basically 2.4 tenths of a second faster in the standing start to 100 kilometers per hour and about 3 tenths faster to 300 meters. This is really an absolutely big deal. I believe something like this is already available in other softwares, but probably not as publicly. It's also the case that not all series will be implicated with this, because not all series will have a standing start. Series like the Porsche Cup and Formula One series do have it, but you know, whoever plays GT3s won't be affected by this by the slightest. Still, since we're close to Halloween, there are a few spooky implications about a software like this. The first one is competitive. It's very likely that this type of software or pedals will become more common throughout the years. While this launch control feature won't guarantee you a victory, it will certainly help you cement a position at the start of the race. With 0.2 seconds at the start, that is a huge advantage. And it's also one of the reasons why people are so aggressive at the start. They really want to cement those positions, so it will be harder for the competition to overtake them. I believe this could become a real problem at the higher echelon, especially at esports Porsche Cup that is sponsored by Porsche, because everybody's already so competitive there. And if they find an edge to win over others, they will go there. But most importantly, it could even create some sort of software arms race between developers, where this could mutate into something even more pervasive and more intrusive to the driving and more insidious as well, like auto traction control on the fly or auto ABS, where you could exploit the no ABS of the car and still have ABS engaged without any loss of traction or any loss of advantage. However, I'm kind of worried about a possible slippery slope between developers of hardware saying, now our system will also have something like this, and then everybody starts to go around implementing software like this. And then for those who don't have that equipment and don't have the means to go there, they'll be basically at a competitive disadvantage. So for me, it's a question of time. We're going to see this maybe just with Conspit. Maybe there's another brand of hardware that does the same. And then in a year or two, we're going to see this something as more common in common, and then it will be impossible to police or to control. These are my 2 cents about the topic, but I want to hear from you what you think. Is this a cheat, something that should be policed, or something that we shouldn't care about?